Hi guys, it's Stacy with Handmade by Stacy Today I'm going to show you how to make this hat. This is the Sabino Sunrise Hat, and it got its name because by living here in Tucson, Arizona, one of the favorite places of me and my husband to go to is Sabino Canyon to go hiking. So this reminds me of the sunrise colors that we get, and of course Sabino is just gorgeous. If you're ever in Tucson, you should totally come. So something interesting about this hat though is look at the stitch pattern you have here. And what you can do if you like is the way that we construct this is the pom-pom is put on with a button, totally removable, and then you can turn it inside out and you have a different stitch pattern. So look at how pretty that is. So I'm going to show you how to make this hat from beginning to end, including how to make the pom-pom, how to attach it so that it's removable, and how to create this wonderful ribbing. It has like a knit look, but it's really just working single crochets in the back loop. So this is a pretty beginner-friendly pattern. It just works the herringbone double crochet. I show you how to do it. It's like a double crochet with one less step. And that's really it. It's not difficult at all. So I do hope you join me, and I hope you enjoy making your hat. Let's go ahead and get started. To get started on the hat, we're going to need a few supplies. So I'm using the Mandala Ombre right here in the color Serene. And this is just a nice, fun, fruity kind of color. And I really, really think this is going to be great on the hat. You're also going to need a tape measure so that you can measure the circumference of the hat as you're working on it. You're going to need 2 crochet hooks. So I'm using an H for the body of the hat. And then when we get down to the ribbing, I'm going down a full size to a G. So this is a 4mm, this is a 5mm. And these are my Furls Streamline hooks, which I absolutely love. And if you'd like to get one for yourself, I'll have affiliate links down below where you can pick up a set and help me out by giving me a small commission from the company. It doesn't cost you a penny more. You're also going to need a stitch marker, which is optional, but I find that they just make life a lot easier. A pair of scissors, and this is something that's also optional. This is part of the Clover Pom-Pom Maker Kit. It's a 65mm or a 2.5-inch pom-pom maker. So this is, again, if you have another way of making a pom-pom, it's totally up to you, but this is what I like to use just to make them nice and fluffy. So let's go ahead and get started. To begin the hat, we're going to start with a slip knot, and then we're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. Then in this third chain from the hook, we're going to work 10 herringbone double crochets. Now if you haven't done a herringbone double crochet, I'm going to show you how to do it. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that chain, draw up a loop. Now instead of doing a yarn over as you would for a regular double crochet, you're instead going to draw that loop through that stitch immediately afterwards. Then you'll yarn over, draw through 2. Now, before we go any further, this is where I use my stitch marker, because that was the first stitch that I made. And when I mark those, it just makes my life a lot easier. So now we need to do 9 more herringbone double crochets. So we'll yarn over, insert into that chain, draw up a loop, and draw through that first loop, and then yarn over and draw through 2. So again, yarn over, insert into the chain, draw up a loop, draw it through that first loop, and then yarn over, draw through 2. Yarn over, insert, draw up a loop, draw through 1, yarn over, draw through 2. And that's the herringbone double crochet, and that's what we're going to be doing for the majority of this hat. So we're going to do it again. And once you get the hang of it, this does go really quick. And now I'm going to count what I have so far. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then we're going to join with a slip stitch to the top of that first stitch. And that is row 1. So go ahead and pull this nice and snug, and that will close up the top of your hat. Then you're going to chain 2. I'm going to remove the stitch marker. And this chain 2 will not count as a stitch. So you're going to do 2 herringbone double crochets in each stitch across, only we're going to do it into the back loop and into that third loop right there. So we're going to work into the back loop and the third loop. We're going to drop that loop, draw through that first loop, yarn over, draw through 2. Before we go any further, mark that first stitch. Okay, let's do that one more time. So yarn over into that same stitch, drop a loop, draw through that first loop, yarn over, draw through 2. So that's 2 herringbone doubles in that first one, and we're going to do 2 in each one across. So you'll end up with a total of 20. And remember, we're doing in the back loop and that third loop. I'm coming up to the last couple stitches on this round. And when you finish that up, go ahead and join with a slip stitch where that first stitch was. And then chain 2. Remove that stitch marker. Now, to begin round 3, we're going to start increasing. And every row that we do, we are going to increase by 10 stitches until we get to the circumference that you need for your hat. Now, to determine the circumference that you need, measure the head that the hat is for, and then subtract it by 2 inches. So for instance, my head is 22 inches, so I'm going to go until my circumference is 20 inches, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do the increases for that. So let's go ahead and get started by doing 2 herringbone double crochets in this first stitch, in that back loop and that third loop. So that's 1 and 2. And before I go any further, I'm going to mark that first stitch. Now in the next stitch, you're going to work 1 herringbone double crochet in the back loop and that third loop. And then that's your repeat. So you're going to work 2 herringbone double crochets in the next stitch, in the back loop and third loop. So that's 1, 2, and then 1 in the next. 2 in the next one. 1 and 2, and then 1 in the next stitch. And just continue doing that repeat until you come around, and I'll meet you towards the end of this round. All right, we're coming towards the end of this round where I'm doing my last repeat of 2 herringbone double crochets in that back loop and third loop, and then 1 in the next one. Then I'm going to join with a slip stitch where that first stitch is, and then chain 2. I'm going to remove my stitch marker, and then we're going to work 2 herringbone double crochets in the back loop and third loop of this stitch, and then we're going to do a herringbone double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So begin with that first stitch in the back loop and the third loop. Sometimes that third loop's a little bit cranky. So that's 1 and 2. And before we go any further, marking this little guy, and then 1 in each of the next 2. That's 1 and 2. Now we're going to do this repeat all over again. So 2 herringbone doubles in this stitch, 1 in this stitch, and 1 in the next stitch. That's 1 and 2 and 1 in the next stitch and 1 in the next stitch. And you'll just continue doing that repeat all the way around. I'll meet you when we come up to the end, and on this round we should end up with 40 stitches. I'm coming to the end of this round. I have just 2 more to go. That's 1 and 2. Now we're going to join with a slip stitch in the top of our very first stitch, and then we're going to chain 2. And you'll start to notice that we have this wonderful little ridge that's starting to show. And that's where working in the back loop makes it interesting. Plus with the herringbone, it gives the nice little ridges from the stitches. And I just really like the design that this has. So for our next round, I'm going to remove the stitch marker and we're going to increase by 10 again. And you'll notice that there's a pattern that forms where before we were doing 2 herringbone double crochets and 1, then we were doing 2 and 2. Now we're going to do 2 herringbone double crochets and 3. So 2 in this one and then 1, 2, 3. And that's going to increase by 10 nice and evenly. And this is the pattern that we're going to keep following until we get to the size that we want. So I'm just going to make this up to 20 inches, but if you find that you want to do something maybe for a baby where you only need, like, say 12 inches, go ahead and stop when you get to that point, and I'll show you how to measure this as well. But first, for this row, for the increases, we're going to work those 2 herringbone double crochets. So, whoops, if it cooperates, there's 1 and 2. I'm going to mark that very first stitch. And now we're going to do 1 herringbone double crochet in the back loop and the third loop of each of the next 3 stitches. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And that is your pattern repeat. So 2 herringbone doubles in the next stitch. There's 1 and 2, and then 1 in each of the next 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And we'll just continue with that repeat until we get to the towards the very end. And then after we finish this round, I'll show you how to do the measuring. 1, 2, and then 1, 2, and 3. All right, and that's the last one. Now we're going to join with a slip stitch in the top of that first stitch, and we're going to chain 2. But before we go any further, let's do a quick measurement. I'm going to show you how to do this. So this is where you need your measuring tape. Oh, this is a whole lot of pink, isn't it? Okay, so you have your measuring tape, and you're going to go around the circle. And right now I am at 14 inches. So I need to go 6 more inches all the way around to get to that 20 inches. So that's going to take probably a couple more rows, and I will show you how to do the increases on those so that we can get that way or get to our destination. So we're going to begin first by removing our stitch marker. And on this round, we're going to be doing 2 herringbone double crochets, and then we're going to do 1 herringbone double in the next 4 stitches. In the back loop and the third loop, that's 1 and 2. I'm going to mark that first one. And now I'm going to do 1 herringbone double in each of the next 4 in the back loop and the third loop. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that is your repeat for this round. So we're going to do 2 herringbone doubles in the back loop and third loop of the next stitch. So that's 1 and 2, and then 1 in each of the next 4 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you'll continue doing that repeat all the way around. I'll meet you when we get up close to the end, and you'll end up with 60 stitches on this round. I'm doing my final repeat for this round with those 2 herringbones, and now 1 in each of the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we'll join with a slip stitch at the top of that first stitch and chain 2. Now we need to do another increase row to get to that 20 inches. So we're going to do 2 herringbone doubles in that first stitch in the back loop and third loop. That's 1 and 2. And then we're going to work 1 herringbone double in each of the next 5 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that is your repeat for this round. So 2 herringbone doubles in the next stitch, 1 in each of the next 5. And when you finish this round, you should have 70 stitches. And I'll meet you when we come up to the end here. I'm coming up to the end of this round. I have the 5 herringbones left to do. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I'm going to join at the top of that first stitch with a slip stitch and chain 2. Now I'm going to do a quick measurement just to see where I'm at. To measure this, I am at 19 inches. So I'm going to do one more increase round, and I think that'll get me right to about where I want to be at 20 inches. Now, if this is the size that you want, so say you're doing a brim that needs to be 21 inches, so you are going to stop at the 19, go ahead and stop now, and then I will have a space in the show notes where you can skip ahead or just fast forward just a little bit to get past this next increase round. And then we'll get started on the body of the hat. To do the next increase round, I'm going to remove that stitch marker, and I'm going to do my herringbone double crochet in the back loop and third loop. I'm going to do 2 of them in that first stitch. So that is 1 and 2. I'm going to mark that first stitch. And then I'm going to do 1 herringbone double crochet in each of the next 6 stitches. And this will take us up to 80 stitches on this round. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that's your repeat for this round. So 2 herringbone double crochets in the next stitch and 1 in each of the next 6. And I'll meet you when we come up to the end here, and then I believe we'll be able to start on the body of the hat. I'm coming up on my last 3 stitches of this round. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Now I'll join with a slip stitch in the top of that first stitch and chain 2. I'm going to do a quick measurement on this just to double check. Okay. And now I am at 21. So I am a little bit larger than I had originally intended to be, but that's okay. I'm really not going to worry about that because I don't think 1 inch is going to make that big of a difference in the fit. So let's go ahead and keep moving. We're going to go ahead and start doing the body of the hat now. And the body is super, super easy. It's going to seem very familiar to you because essentially all we are going to do is a herringbone double crochet in every stitch across. So now if you need a bigger hat, you can do another increase row or round, and it would be a 2 herringbone doubles in that first stitch, and then you would do 1 in each of the next 7. If you have to do another increase round, then it would be 2 herringbone double crochets and then 1 in the next 8. I don't think you'll probably ever need to go larger than that, but if you do, that's where you see the pattern. With each row, it just increases by 1 that you're doing singularly. So as long as it's a 10 stitch even increase, you'll be fine. But to start on the body of the hat, we're going to work a herringbone double crochet in that first stitch, and only one this time because we are no longer increasing. So we have our first one, and then I'm going to mark that first stitch, and now all you're going to do is do a herringbone double crochet in each stitch around, and you'll end up with 80 stitches. And when you get to the end, you'll just work a slip stitch to the top of this first stitch, and then you'll chain 2, do the same thing again, and you'll continue doing that until you are about 6 3/4 inches long of the body. So from about right here to about 6 3/4 inches. And I'll check in after I've got about 3 inches, so that way you can see how this looks. So here I've marked where I began the body of the hat, and now I am at 3.5 inches. So this is what your hat should look like so far. You can kind of see the seam that goes in the back, but if you put that at the back of the hat, I don't think it's really that big of a deal. And when you flip it inside out, you see this wonderful, wonderful stitch pattern as well. So if you wanted to, you could just turn this into your front side when you're all done making the hat. I don't know, it's an option. So I'm going to continue working this until I get the body of this up to 6 3/4 or thereabouts, and that'll give me a nice slouchy hat. I'm now at about 6 3/4 inches from where I marked the beginning of the body, and now it's time to start the ribbing of the hat. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove my little marker that I have here, and then I'm going to put my H hook aside, and I'm going to step down to my G hook or my 4mm, or whatever size you are using for the body. Just go down one full size hook. Now I have not cut the yarn because we're going to continue working with what we have there, and that's 2 less ends to worry about weaving in. Now this is the single crochet ribbing, and what I'm going to do is make it just a few inches. So I have 2 chained already, and I'm going to chain a total of 10. So actually, let me go back and chain with my G hook. And we need to be working in the round as we were when we were creating the hat. So we're going to chain 10. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now every stitch that we do moving here on out is always going to be in the back loop. So in that second chain from the hook, in this loop right here, we're going to do a single crochet. And we're going to do that in each chain across. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So 9 single crochets total. Then in the stitch where you would normally do your herringbone double crochet, we're going to do a single crochet. And I'm going to do it the same way as I did before, working in the back loop and the third loop. I'm going to remove this marker. I won't be needing this anymore, so we'll just put that aside. And now in that stitch, you're going to do a slip stitch. And then in the next stitch, same way, you're going to do a slip stitch. Now that we have that, we're going to turn the work. And we are going to skip this one, skip that one, and in our first single crochet in the back loop only, we're going to work a single crochet. And we're going to do a single crochet in the back loop all the way down. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to turn. And see, you can already start the ribbing starting to form here. So we're going to do that again. And this is pretty simple to do. It just takes a little bit of time. So working in the back loop, we have this chain 1. We're going to work single crochet in this first stitch and in the remaining stitches across. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 in that last one. And then we'll do just like we did before. So we'll work not in the same stitch where you already worked your previous slip stitches, but in the next one, in that back loop and third loop, work a slip stitch, and then one, whoops, try not to lose your hook, and then one in the last one, or the next one, I'm sorry. And then we're going to turn. We're going to skip this one, and work a single crochet in the back loop of all of these. So you'll just continue in that manner all the way around your hat. And when I come up towards the end, I'll meet you there so that we can finish this up together. I'm coming to the end of my ribbing, and you'll see that I'm just about to where the first edge is, and I have 2 stitches left to do the slip stitch on. Now, if you're doing a stitch count to where you end up with just 1 left, that's okay. You'll just do the slip stitch 1 time and then work the ending just as we will here. So let's go ahead and finish out this ribbing. So I have 1 slip stitch and 2 slip stitch. Whoops, that's a little bit messy. Let's clean that up. There we go, 2 slip stitch. Now we're gonna rotate this guy, and we're going to skip those 2 stitches right there and work that single crochet in the back loop. Do 9 of these. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Then we'll chain 1, give it a turn, and then work those 9 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, now we're coming to the end here. And there's a couple of ways you can do it. I'm going to do a slip stitch here just to bring it on in. So slip stitch with that back loop and that third loop just to connect it. Now you can choose to do a long tail and sew it together, or you can do just like a slip stitch seam, and by doing that, it's really not hard at all. You'll end up taking your hook, going in to the back loop of that first one, and the front loop of the first one of your last one. So just to make sure I'm in the right one, I'm going to do a quick count. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. And then just slip stitch that. Then work the back loop of the next one. If it'll let you. They get just a little bit cranky, don't they? And then the front loop of this one. And do a slip stitch. And just continue working on down. And it's going to give you a little bit of a seam that goes down the side. But in our case, that's where the seam is for the rest of the hat. So let's continue. That back loop and that front loop. And we're down to our last two. Make sure that my hook and my yarn cooperate. Then the very last one. Of course, it's going to be a little stubborn as we're wrapping this up. There we go. And last one on here. All right, there we go. And then I do a quick chain one. And then the exciting part, I get to cut it. Boop. All right. So now we have your hat all done together. And we'll do the pom-pom next. But before we do the pom-pom, this is your time to decide, do you like this side or do you want to turn it inside out and make this your right side? There is really no right or wrong answer. It's what you prefer to do. So once you've decided, we're going to get started with the pom-pom. Or if you'd like to make it totally reversible, we can do the pom-pom, and instead of sewing it on the hat, you can just do the pom-pom with a button on the inside, so that way you can undo the button if you want to make the hat reversible. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So now we're ready to make the pom-pom. And after finishing the hat, this is how much yarn I have left. Now, because of the colors in the hat, I decided I'm going to do half of the pom-pom in the pinks, the other half in the oranges. So I'm going to pull from the center and from the outside. And I also found a nice big pink button that's going to help make this a reversible hat. And I made sure it was big enough that I can fit my needle through here with ease. So that way it just makes life a lot easier for us. And I've grabbed my 65 millimeter or 2.5 inch pom-pom maker from my Clover Pom-Pom kit. So let's get started on this. To start making the pom-pom, I'm going to open up the two sides. So on each side, just on the top, I'm going to open this up. And it looks like it's smiling at you. I like smiley pom-pom makers. And I'm grabbing from the center of my yarn cake with what's left over. And I'm just going to feed that on through the center just so it stays out of the way. And then I can hang on to it with my other hand. And then I'm just going to start wrapping. And I like fluffy pom-poms, so I'm going to fill this guy up. But I'm going to do just one wrap at a time, just filling it in gradually and evenly. And because the center is smaller, it might look like you're getting gaps here, but that's okay. So just keep winding around. Then I'll go ahead and fast forward this part so that way we can get to the good stuff. All right, Now this is pretty full. You don't want it to go all the way to the top because you want to be able to close this and still bind it together when you tie it. So we're going to now move this over to that side so it's closed. And I'm going to go ahead and clip this yarn because I'm now going to work from the outside of my cake. And I'm going to do that for this side, just like we just did with the pink. Now I finished with the orange and I'm ready to close this up just like so. Now, how's this going to become a pom-pom? I'll show you. So you can use the strings that you already have that you use to wind the pom-pom. That is totally up to you. Either way is fine. I think I'm going to cut another strand of my yarn. So I'm going to cut a strand that, well, it's a little more generous than it even needs to be, but that's okay. But before we do that, we're going to do some cutting. So we're going to go in between and we're just going to cut. And you're going to need sharp scissors for this because dull scissors will just drive you absolutely crazy. Okay, so we have the orange taken care of. And now this little lip right here is where we're going to be putting the string that ties the pom-pom together. So now we're going to flip it over and we're going to do the same thing on the pink side. So just a little snip. And you'll find that you might miss a couple. That's okay. Just go back, give them a little snip. And we're going to go back in and clean this up afterwards. This is when your project actually does start getting a little bit messy. But that is a-okay. All right, so we have a pink side and an orange side. Now, let's take, I'm going to go ahead and just trim this guy right here. And I'm going to trim this pink one just so that they're out of the way. Now, I'm going to take this pink piece of yarn that I have and I'm going to tie it around. But I'm going to open this up just a tiny bit just so that the yarn has room. And you're going to thread it around that. So make sure it gets between the two sides there and between these two sides. And it essentially just hangs just like so. And you want to give it a little tug because then it goes between that. So see, that yarn is no longer there because it slipped through and is now in the center of your pom-pom. Now, if you're using 100% wool, I would recommend using a piece of a different type of fabric because wool does tend to break on its own. But this is an acrylic blend, so this is pretty strong material here. So you're just going to tie a knot and you're going to tie it nice and tight. Not so tight that you break your yarn. And then what I do is I flip it and I do one more knot on the other side. Just like so. And you want to leave your strands pretty long if you're going to do the button that I'm going to do. Okay, so that's one more nice strong pull. And I'm going to knot it just one more time. Okay, now it's time for the moment of truth. Let's pull this apart, see how our pom-poms look. So, first step we got to do, we need to open these up just so that it can breathe. I get a little too excited sometimes and get ahead of myself. All right, so these are opened up. Now we can let it breathe. So let's pull it apart. Whoop, there's one end. Didn't want to let go. There's the other end. Now we have this cute little pom-pom. And we can tie it to the hat using these strings. But before we do that, this little guy needs a haircut. So do a little bit of fluffing on him and you'll see the ones that need trimmed. So I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. And we're just going to start giving a little haircut. So just do little trims on the ones that look like they're too long, or if he just seems a little bit lopsided, you can just clean it up. Remember what I said about this is the messy part? Now you're going to know what I'm talking about. But there's nothing like a happy pom-pom to top off a hat. So a little haircut. Okay, I think this little guy is ready to go on the hat. Now to attach the pom-pom to the hat, first we're going to have the pom-pom sitting on top of the hat, and then we're going to use the button. So to make it easier, I like to just thread my needle. You can do it one at a time, or if the eye on your needle is large enough, you can do both strands. And let's see. So I'm going to do it to where the herringbone shows, and this is the right side. So I'm going to insert my hand into the hat where I can see the top. And right where you started with your 10 herringbone double crochets, in that center, I'm going to insert my needle. And then I'm just going to pull until that pom-pom is right there on top of the hat. Now it's not secure yet, so we're going to go to the inside, and this is where we're going to be using our button. So this is going to be a super easy way to affix the pom-pom, and this is great if you give it to somebody who decides maybe they don't want a pom-pom or they want to reverse out the hat. So put your thread or your one of your sides of yarn onto your needle, and then you're going to put it in one part of your button. Pull that through, and then the next one, go ahead and thread your needle and do the same on the other side. And then you can tie it in a knot. I will tie mine in just a little bow, so that way it's easily changed. And there's our little bow. I'll probably make it a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to trim the ends so that they're a little more even. You can even do like a double knot of the bow if you really want to secure that. But you now have a hat that is ready to gift, ready to give to a good home, or ready to use for yourself if you'd like. It'll be nice and cozy for you. So I do hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and come back often because I'll have more goodies coming your way. And I hope you have a wonderful night. Happy crafting. Bye-bye.